the Green New Deal is dead after it didn't get a single vote yes on the Senate floor today. It crashed and burned 57-0. Cowardly Dems voted present as a protest to the procedural vote, but a handful actually voted with Republicans. Before the vote, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer called the whole thing a sham meant to divide his party. But Utah Senator Mike Lee used some visual aids to give the proposal the seriousness it deserved, such as using giant seahorses to travel to Hawaii instead of jets. That's fun. So will the left face reality and give up on the plan? Joining me now, capitalist pig, hedge fund manager, and Fox News contributor, Jonathan Hoenig is back. Welcome back, sir.
Well, I'm frightened, Kennedy. My God, we only have 12 years.
That's it.
12 years. Before I don't know, or whether are we going to drown, or are we going to be set on fire? AOC
Probably
said
both.
we only have 12. Yeah, I mean, the climate is going to have a catastrophe in 12 years, and yet all these Democrats, Kennedy, you know, the ones that are running for president on the Green New Deal, today was the day. Put up or shut up. They couldn't raise their hand in support of this anti-man legislation they'll claim to support.
The funny thing about the Green New Deal is very little of it actually has to do with the environment. And the part that does have to do with the environment is so impractical and expensive, it would cause more damage than the sun or carbon dioxide ever could.
Oh, yeah, that's the whole thing with the Green New Deal. This is not pro-environment. It really is anti-man. It is a 70, 80, 90 trillion dollars. At some point, you just stop counting. Socialist takeover of energy. That is the fuel that powers our modern economy. And it's the byproduct, Kennedy. I don't know. You know a lot of millennials. This hysteria, this climate change hysteria that AOC and many leftists really embolize right now. I've been hearing it for 50 years. These predictions. It was going to be an ice age. It was going to be starvation. It was going to be flooding. Yeah. And it all comes down to sacrifice your own well-being for nature and the so-called public good.
Yes, and you know, we've always wondered how much of the economy, how much of GDP are you willing to sacrifice in order to heal the planet? And the answer with this is pretty much all of it. What's interesting is there are two timelines here. One is the ending of the earth. That is supposed to happen in a dozen years. But it's interesting because Social Security actually will be insolvent in 12 years. Which one is the real crisis?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a real issue. I mean, AOC, part of the Green New Deal is, you know, free jobs and free health care. So it really is socialism writ large. But, you know, Kennedy, this whole suggestion that somehow the environment is hurting and we're all suffering from this dirty environment, it just doesn't bear it out in reality. No. The air and water is cleaner than it ever has been before.
Yeah, you know, let's go swimming. Jonathan Hoenig, yeah, we're up against it, but you are my hero. Thank you so much for being here.
Be bold, but know how to pay for your ideas. Words of wisdom from former President Obama to a group of new Democratic lawmakers. Correspondent Peter Ducey reports on how the advice was received on Capitol Hill.
The Democrat who won on a promise of hope and change just told Democratic House freshmen he hopes they change their approach. Barack Obama huddled with House freshmen, and according to the Washington Post, quote, he said, "We as Democrats shouldn't be afraid of big, bold ideas, but also need to think in the nitty-gritty about how those big, bold ideas will work and how you pay for them." 44's advice resonated with freshman Congresswoman Katie Hill.
He told us just a lot of advice about really kind of sticking to the reason that you ran for office in the first place.
But for Democrats running for president, the pricey progressive pitches keep coming, like a plan to give every teacher in America a $13,500 raise for $315 billion over 10 years.
We're going to pay for it by adjusting the estate tax. Right now, it's only $11 million and up, and we need to lower that.
Another popular progressive plan actually made it to the Senate floor today for a procedural vote, the Green New Deal, which would cost trillions a year to implement. Mitch McConnell says he was just giving presidential candidates in the chamber a chance to support a campaign trail staple.
No senator voted in the affirmative.
But the vote was never expected to pass.
Now suddenly, they want to vote on the Green New Deal? We will not fall for this stunt.
Gillibrand voted present. So did every other Democrat running for president.
Pretty obviously, a vote present today is a vote in favor of the Green New Deal.
Green New Deal sponsor, Democratic Senator Ed Markey, didn't think the resolution was ready.
We will not allow the Republicans to make a mockery of our democratic process.
But there was nothing Markey could do to stop Senator Mike Lee from taking the floor with a huge photo of Aquaman.
I draw your attention, Mr. President, to the 20-foot impressive seahorse he's riding. Under the Green New Deal, this is probably Hawaii's best bet.
When critics pointed out that eliminating air travel or maybe even meat could be unfeasible, Democrats running for president jumped to defend the Green New Deal. But today, none of them voted to advance it. So the Green New Deal resolution earned 0 votes in the Senate, just 60 short of the 60 it needed to advance. John?
Peter Ducey for us tonight covering that. Peter, thank you.
All right, a lot to discuss with Kentucky Republican Senator Rand Paul, who joins us right now. This vote, this green vote that's going on, a test vote, a lot of Democrats have said it's a political stunt by Republicans. Republicans say, well, you came up with the idea. If you stand by it, support it, vote for it. So a lot of them were told the Democrats are going to vote present on this. But it is a test of strength there, and a lot of people say politics on both sides. Senator Rand Paul, how would you vote on this?
Well, you know, I'm not for socialism. I'm also not for ending an era in which we can drive cars or fly on airplanes. I'm not for regulating cows out of existence. So there's a lot of absurdities here that the left has gone farther and farther to the left with this climate change alarmism. I think that they need to be called out for the crazy things they're asking for. And if people want to give up cars, airplanes, cows, you know, if all of that's going to happen and we're going to spend about $50-60 trillion on it, people need to know that this is the lunacy that's coming from the left.
So for those Democrats who presumably vote present with marching orders from Chuck Schumer, what do you think of that?
Well, you know, they're going to say, oh, this is not what we're really for, and yet we put their own words before them, so they're going to get a chance to vote on it. But it gives us a chance to discuss really kind of the craziness of what they're advocating. This is something that would shut down the whole modern economy of the U.S., and it is so naive and also dangerous that there does need to be discussion about it. Nothing will happen because of this vote other than to draw attention to it. But if they're really for this and all the leading Democrat candidates are coming, you know, forward, and this is the new litmus test, you got to be for the Green New Deal, the American public needs to know it's going to cost somewhere between $50 and $90 trillion, and that it would bankrupt the country, but it would also shut down whole industries. Think of how many people work in the fossil fuel oil industry. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people. You know, think of how it would be with no airplanes. Think of how it would be if we regulate how much you can drive your car. So this is a very extreme proposal, and they need to come forward and defend it.
The president, if I could switch gears, Senator, says he's been completely exonerated on the Mueller probe. Do you agree?
Absolutely, and I think this is a good day for America if we're going to get beyond all this. I think it was a partisan witch hunt from the beginning. The president has been exonerated. The Democrats and some in the left-wing media that promoted this, I think they need to apologize to the country, and they need to try to be more objective in the reporting and not create some kind of narrative that somehow President Trump is a Russian spy, which was ridiculous, but also insulting.
Apparently, though, it's not open and shut when it came to the obstruction of justice charge. Democrats want to see that report quickly so they can conclude for themselves. Attorney General Barr has said, you know, one way or the other, no, there was nothing conclusive on that front. And if he was wrong on that, then Mueller certainly would have corrected him. But what do you think about that?
I think that you can't obstruct justice when there wasn't a crime. How do you cover up for a crime that didn't occur? So if President Trump and nobody in his campaign colluded with Russia, which was the accusation, if they didn't do that, how can they be covering up for something they didn't do? So I think it's this idea that where's the burden? It's sort of like somebody stole some groceries in New York today. Are you guilty of it, Neil? Do you have to prove that you're not guilty, or should the government have to prove you're guilty? It sort of turns it on his head that's like, oh, the president needs to prove that he didn't obstruct justice. No, that's the government's job, and they have a burden to prove it. They couldn't prove it, but there also is no crime, so you can't obstruct a crime that didn't happen.
If it were groceries, people might suspect I would have seized on it, Senator. Could I ask you something, though, about this request that Papadopoulos' camp has had, and others, I'm sure, down the road for pardons? from this president. Do you think he should pardon anyone?
The one that I have the strongest feeling about is General Flynn, because I think no American should be prosecuted for something they said in a private phone call unless a judge gave a warrant to the government and said they can listen to the phone call. They listened to General Flynn because they were spying on the Russian ambassador. Okay, that's foreign intelligence, but that shouldn't be domestic prosecution. So what they did to Flynn should not only was unfair, but I think should be unconstitutional. And I've been bugging the president for years to come forward and fix this for all Americans and say that no foreign intelligence gathering of information could ever be used against an American citizen in court for a crime unrelated to terrorism. So what they did to General Flynn was unfair, and I have told the president, he's not responded to me, but I've told him my opinion is that he ought to pardon General Flynn.
The president, meanwhile, has gone after those who appeared on TV throughout this 2-year saga, including, people like the former CIA director, John Brennan, who all but called him, I believe he did, a traitor. Do you think anyone who said stuff like that, particularly those who are in a position of power, should apologize?
You know, I think with people like John Brennan and James Clapper, who are known to have lied in their official capacity, that their partisanship is really unbecoming, and what they've done and said about the president is unbecoming. So I can understand the president's anger towards them. And really, I do think John Brennan should have been prosecuted for tapping into Democrat computers when they were studying the issue of torture. And I think James Clapper should have been prosecuted for lying to Congress and saying they were not collecting all of our phone data when in actuality they were. So I worry about people that have that much power and control and can eavesdrop on every moment of our lives. I worry that they're dishonest, but I also worry that they've now come out of the closet as extreme partisans with extreme vitriol and hatred for the president.
Senator Rand Paul, good seeing you again. Thank you very, very much.